What's up, everybody? Welcome to Make Things Tiny. My name is Mick. So far, I've gone through 22 of the 50 states in the US, just going through and looking at the tiny house communities available in those states and what your options are for going tiny if there's no formal option in that state, which is actually the case for quite a few states in the US. Today, we're going to go over to the West Coast and talk about Idaho, which may not be one of the first states that comes to mind to you when you think of tiny homes, but I think it's worth exploring. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and let's jump into it. Let's talk about tiny house communities in Idaho. All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about tiny house communities in Idaho. Idaho is sort of a sleeper state, in my opinion, in the northwest part of the United States. It's actually part of the Pacific Northwest, along with Oregon and Washington. And it's got a lot of pros going for it when it comes to cost of living. It's a little bit lower than the $80K you find annually in the country as a whole. It's sitting at $74,000 a year. You've got Boise, which is a really cool city if you've ever visited before, sort of being like surrounded by mountains. Obviously, it's a huge plus for anyone that's looking to have an outdoor lifestyle. It's pretty close to Oregon and Washington, especially on the west sides where it borders those states. So if you're interested in exploring the Pacific Northwest, it gives you options to look at the other states as well too. There's over 60 waterfalls in the state of Idaho. It's actually one of the few states in the country that doesn't have a national park, but it does have plenty of parks because over 60% of the state is actually public land. That's a really cool opportunity to just be able to explore a lot more natural landscapes than you get in some other states because it is less urban. When we're talking about tiny house laws, it's actually an interesting time to be looking at Idaho and Boise in particular because there's some changes happening in this particular city within the state. So first of all, Boise is actually becoming a lot more expensive. So median household income in the city of Boise is almost 100 grand over the national average, which surprised me. So you have a lot of people moving to Boise, particularly from California, people that are looking for a lower cost of living. Maybe they're looking for a little bit different climate. So Boise, Idaho is actually becoming a hot spot for moving, particularly for transplants. That's having an impact on the overall housing market, which has particularly led the city of Boise to sort of look into affordable housing options, and tiny houses have sort of topped the list for that option. Now, just giving you a little bit of background, historically, so before this year, when this video was recorded, before June of 2025, only tiny houses on permanent foundation were allowed in the city of Boise. More recently, the city has voted to approve tiny houses on wheels in the city limits of Boise. So as of right now, when this video is being recorded in July of 2025, tiny homes on wheels can be considered permanent residences. They still have to be under 400 square feet. Originally, they weren't allowed, but you can now have 2 tiny houses on wheels available per lot, which is a huge win for those who want to go tiny, don't need to be on a ton of land. And in general, the city's trying to use this as an affordable housing option. Now, they did used to have a program to allow people to have tiny homes on their lot to host someone, but that program has since been shut down. They're not taking new applications, so this is their way of trying to remedy as best as they can the housing situation. So definitely drop a comment. I want to know what you think about this. Check it out. I'll make sure that the links to the articles about this push to have tiny houses on wheels in the city. Let me know what you think about that as an option, particularly around affordable housing. But the pro here is that tiny homes on wheels are allowed in Boise, Idaho, and that tiny homes are becoming more popular in the state in general. So that's a huge win for anyone that's looking to go tiny in this particular area and in Boise city limits as well too. When we're looking at the climate outside of the zoning laws and different things that are going on sort of at the city or government level, there is a tiny house builder in the state of Idaho. It's Tiny Idahomes. So definitely check them out if you're interested in working with a builder that specifically specializes in tiny homes and tiny homes on wheels. If you're looking for tiny homes that are on permanent foundation, more the ADU route, you can check out 208 Tiny Homes. This is what their website looks like. They specialize in ADUs. So when we're looking at tiny house communities in general, in a perfect world, they'll be more affordable, right? You'll have access to amenities, you'll be in a great location, you'll have a security in a different way than you would if you were just on a plot of land by yourself, and it offers flexibility. Now, I think Boise, Idaho is a great example of the flexibility piece because with the new zoning laws, it's giving people a chance to try out, is this going to work? Are people going to choose to go tiny and stay for a while, or is it a temporary thing for people? So that's something to always keep in mind. It doesn't have to be something you do for the rest of your life. When we're talking about tiny house communities, There is no formal tiny house community in the state of Idaho, which I'm not surprised by. It makes sense. Idaho is sort of at the beginning stages of figuring out what works for them in terms of tiny homes. And I could see where historically people weren't thinking to necessarily like move to Idaho and create a tiny house community. But there are some options for those of you who are looking to go tiny right now as things continue to sort of evolve within this industry in this state. First up is Red Rock RV Park. This is what their website looks like. Red Rock RV Park is located in Island Park, Idaho. It's about 90 minutes from a Walmart, so it's not close to major stores or anything like that. You're 15 minutes from a grocery store, but it's going to be a local grocery store. So keep that in mind when you're looking at some of these places in Idaho. Make sure you do, Google Maps check for the distance between some of those places that you feel like are really essential to your day-to-day life. As an RV park, they're offering, nightly rentals for the RVs at $100 a night, but they do have monthly options, which is why I wanted to mention them, because those monthly options could include tiny homes. You just have to call and find out whether or not you can bring your own tiny home and do the monthly rates that they have. They do have tiny house rentals, like the one seen here. It's $350 a night. It seems to be like more of a modern tiny home. They've got ATV trails and pickleball courts and a brand new dog park, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're in this particular area or you're interested in Idaho in general. Next up is the Smoke Jumper. This is what their website looks like. The Smoke Jumper is a tiny house resort. I actually first saw a YouTube video about this particular resort community. They're located in Idaho City, Idaho, which is less than an hour from Boise, which is also going to put you about 50 minutes out from a Target. I couldn't find a Walmart that was closer. They have a couple of really modern tiny homes, same exact floor plan throughout, $140 a night, which I think is one of the more affordable nightly rates for tiny home resorts. They have laundry rooms, they've got a movie theater, they cater to remote workers, and they're pet friendly. So the Smoke Jumper I would recommend as your first entry into the tiny house experience in Idaho. So go and stay at the Smoke Jumper, check it out, see if you like the area, see what it's like to make that commute an hour from the Smoke Jumper into the major city, and then decide whether or not it makes sense for you to go tiny. I'll always recommend that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone just buy a tiny house and just move to a random place, because you don't know if it's going to work out and then you're stuck with the home. Next up is Bear Den RV Resort. This is what their website looks like. Bear Den RV Resort is located in Grangeville, Idaho. It's about 60 minutes from a grocery store, so this is pretty far out from anything. It's very, very remote, just like Red Rock RV Park, but they do have cabin rentals at $125 a night, which is pretty affordable, and there are monthly options, so that's why I wanted to bring this one up, because you never know, it could be an opportunity for you to try out tiny living or be in a tiny house for a year or two. They have laundry facilities, and they have a game room as well too. I wanted to make sure I talked about the land, personally because I was curious about what the land options are in Idaho and what the price point looks like, but I know more and more people are dropping comments and are interested in living on the land that they own themselves. If you go to land search, you've got a couple of options. This one that I found here in Harrison, Idaho, it's $40,000 for about a quarter of an acre, but it looks like it's in a really cool area with like water access and things like that, so it could be worth investing in. Another option, $50,000, almost an acre in Council, Idaho. Both of these are more so on the west side of the state, closer to like Spokane, Washington, or that Oregon, Idaho border. But again, these could be good options for you if you want to do the land DIY route. In this particular video, your options are to buy the home and potentially rent the land, or buy the land. There isn't an option in Idaho to buy the home or own the land, and there's no traditional tiny house community as well either. So you do have some questions to answer and some additional research to do. But if you're basing just off of this particular video that I've done, you have 4 options. You can check out Red Rock RV Park, you can check out the Smoke Jumper, which is sort of like a classic tiny house resort, you can check out Bear Den RV Resort, or you can buy land and get a tiny house and sort of DIY it. But ultimately it matters what you all think, so I'd love to hear from you all. Make sure you drop comments. Have you thought about Idaho? What do you think about just that particular, like more like kind of Pacific Northwest part of the country? Is that an area you would move to? Have you been to Boise? If you haven't seen my most recent video on tiny house communities in different states, you can check them out here. And don't forget to think tiny. I'll see you guys in the next one.